Right, we are here with Robert. We're also here with my man Moh. And last night was unbelievable. I think everybody was anxious. I don't know about you, Robert, but everybody that I talked to was stressed out of their mind. They were anxious. They were looking at the U.S. elections, seeing what was going to happen. I think a lot of people thought Biden was going to take this lead and take it. But, you know, it shifted. And Trump is in the race, and we don't know really what's going to happen, who's going to win this. How were you feeling last night?
Straight up, like I was expecting this. I was expecting it to be close. I knew based on kind of like previous elections that, Trump, there's more supporters that want Trump than we think. There's more people like that. So because of that, this was an expectation. And out of that anxious mentality, I tried to actually really block a lot of this news media and stuff like that. And so I only checked about 3 times yesterday.
So what time did you go to bed though?
So I went to bed at 1 o'clock.
Right.
And so right before I went to bed, I was like reading all the information, going through Twitter, going through all the polls, reading some of the stats and the highlights. But it was really like the whole day, I tried not to digest some stuff because of that amount of anxious mentality. And so I just did it in the morning, afternoon, and evening. Now,
why do you think you already knew that this result was going to happen? Like, why do you think, Trump has had the craziest, we don't even have to replay it. The craziest 4 years that any other president has ever had, the most tumultuous, I don't think it's far to say that he's a racist, yet he literally has, Mo, what are we at in terms of numbers, in terms of total popular vote right now?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the popular vote right now, I feel like we're doing like a new segment right now.
Yeah, what are we? Breaking news.
Well, Joe Biden is leading the popular vote. I don't think I'm totally surprised by that, but the popular vote doesn't mean much unless you win the electoral votes.
But you look at the result, right?
Yep.
There's 67 million people that voted for Trump.
Yeah.
So as a black man in Canada, but in tune on the ground floor, what's happening across North America, what does that say?
It shows where people's values are, and I really think what we've seen over the last 4 months in kind of like the Black Lives Matter movement is an indicator where America, but where kind of the world stands a little bit when it comes to sort of some of our leadership's views and points of views clearly of where they stand. And so, take for example, throughout Trump's campaign and his last day, he was saying one of the major pillars that he was standing on is on justice.
Right.
And he was speaking mainly when he made that word justice about what was happening sort of with all of the riots, and not, I should say riots, but all the protests that's been happening for the Black Lives Matter movement. And people were cheering, people were roaring and wanted him to come down hard on that. And that just shows how unfortunately, certain Americans, certain people have a stance that people protesting some of that police brutality and those actions are not justified. That is not, or kind of that is okay to happen. And so because of seeing all of that violence happen and still no extreme changes made place, I just personally felt that is just a reflection of the beliefs and the values of America. And clearly you're seeing that in the numbers.
Well, do you think that, how big of an impact do you think BLM had in terms of this election? For example, do you believe that people just got sick of all the protests, all the, perhaps it even, contributed to more COVID cases? Do you think that contributed to the results that we see right now?
Good question. I think this Black Lives Matter movement has been, first off, it's been one of the biggest movements, civic movements, period.
Yeah.
Because it hit so many different countries and it's ignited the whole world. Now, in reflection of how this now has been politicized and how this is now sort of mapped into what's going on into the country, it's a good question.
Yeah.
And I think, and the reason why I'm hesitant or it's hard to kind of speak to that is both sides, both candidates used that to either rally people behind what their messages are or rally against them. And so it's been interesting. I don't know. I really can't speak to that.
Well, by the way, I think if the thing that we can see with the results is that it's not just white people voting for Trump. It's all over the map as well. And I think if we were in the States, I think we would I'm assuming, I mean, this is the whole thing, is that we can never assume what people are going to say or who people are going to vote for. In fact, I believe the reason why most of the polling is wrong is because when you poll people,
Yeah.
and somebody asks you, who are you going to vote for? You're not going to say Trump. In fact, the reason why you're not going to say Trump is because there's some sort of like stigma,
Totally.
right, associated with you voting for Trump. So you either are going to say Biden or you're going to say undecided.
Yep.
Right? And so that's the problem with polling, is that you never really get the true answers anyways. But to this point, like, do you thinking about the demographics of people who voted for Trump, do you think that there is something that we're missing when it comes to people voting for Trump? Like, what is it, whether it's white or black or Hispanic or Asian, what is it? Why are they voting for Trump?
Another good question, Sean. I think it comes down to like a number of different things. I think essentially there's been such distrust amongst some of the, black communities, cultural-based communities, visible minorities with government that they're just not voting. And so, like, you take an extreme case, a celebrity, Kanye West, for example, who posted, and I don't want to go too off topic, but he posted that this is the first time he's voted, and he's voting for himself. And that's insane, but unfortunately, I mean, a large population of people have that kind of mindset. Like, they just don't vote because they don't trust in the systems.
Right.
And so they don't even care, so to speak, because they feel they don't have an impact. There's no way. So sometimes, or recently, you've seen so many campaigns from some of these celebrities or music artists kind of pushing people to vote. And I would love to even know the data behind that to get an understanding of how many people are actually now voting who weren't voting before. But, like, I sort of digress. Some of the people who are voting for someone who's totally against.
Are they voting for the Republican Party and just like forgetting Trump? Are they voting because Trump represents something that everybody wants to be? Rich. I mean, he probably isn't, but wealthy, powerful.
I think definitely.
Celebrity.
I think class comes in that fold. So if a particular group, whether they're Hispanic, Black, Asian, whatever, accordingly, come from a certain class, they're voting based on potential options. And I think for a lot of the people who are sort of call it lower class or middle class, then they fall into sort of the opposite camp.
Right.
And so it's convoluted, because on Twitter I was like reading a bunch of comments, reading people's perspective, and someone had this like funny comment that was along the lines of like a black person voting for Trump is like Chick McNugget voting for, a Chicken McNugget voting for McDonald's or something. And so it's like people are shooting themselves in their own foot because this leader, this person, this individual is not for you. But why would you ever vote? Why would you ever support someone who's more or less counterintuitive to what you're trying to do?
Right.
Can I just say a little funny comment?
Yeah, what's going on here?
I'm looking at Twitter, and this person says, "Why does Kanye West look like I'm about to unlock a new character?"
By the way, on that note, and I got a bone to pick with both of you guys. Before I do have that bone to pick with you, what has Kanye said about this, by the way? Can we look up to see what Kanye...
Yes, let's...
What is Kanye...
Let's look at Kanye West's Twitter.
Kanye
2024.
2020.
Now...
That's his response.
Now, listen, I know Mo and Bobby, you mentioned this earlier as well, that you guys are Kanye fans. Mo, can we just officially put this Kanye thing to rest? I mean... Listen, he had a nice album a couple years ago, and he's done. He's over. He's jumped a shark.
Like, I mean, he does look like a superhero over here.
I know there's some, mental health issues, and that's 99% of it. But at some point, Mo, you have to be like, you have to separate the art from the artist, and maybe in this case you actually can't anymore, because the music's not good. This is completely crazy. I hate saying crazy because of the mental health issues, but
You're talking about the new music is a little bit.
Well, yeah, the last couple of albums.
But listen, we cannot discredit the old music. As an artist, Kanye's definitely been a genius in that front, and I will definitely fight for him for that. But for this whole politics game and all else, very questionable. So,
and if I could chime in there too, I think he's just stirring the pot. and he's stirring the pot in respect to really, in his own world, trying to like not be always just boxed in as just a music artist, as we're all referring to him as just a music artist, and we refer back to his albums. And as a person who's trying to break through ceilings, break through walls and perspectives, I don't know.
No, I appreciate that you said that, and I don't want to put him in just the music box, and I don't think anybody else wants to. I don't think he doesn't think of himself as just a musician.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's a fashion icon. He has done some amazing things for Adidas and other brands. He has moved the needle in terms of their valuation. So you know, you can't deny his cultural power.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm saying that he's jumped a shark is because there's a way of actively stirring the pot, and then also there is complete delusion as well.
Well,
right? There is part. I love crazy. I love original. I love crazy. I love people with bold ideas. I love people that will push the needle. Okay, but there is a line between crazy good and complete delusion. And like, he's in that camp.
Well, I'm just going to add, did we all think that Donald Trump was going to be president of the United
Well,
States?
you know
back
what?
then?
To me-
Isn't that totally delusion and
I
crazy?
really thought that was delusional.
Do you know what I mean?
like at the first, I thought, ha ha ha.
Yeah,
how could someone
exactly.
ever, like, to be honest, once again, when that locker room talk came out, I was like, wow, this is how you kill someone who could potentially be a president.
Yeah.
When they dropped that release or that leak.
Yeah.
And for him to still get it, I was
So like, I'm not saying Kanye should be president here, but all I'm just saying is that we already have a crazy delusional person who was trying to get the presidency, and he got it. So maybe this is why Kanye was like, wait, if Donald Trump can get it, then I can apply for it. And then, hey, by the way, you know, I'm looking at Trump's Twitter account, and he's just saying pretty much they are finding Biden votes all over the place. You know, so bad for our country. They are working hard to make up 500,000 vote advantage in Pennsylvania disappear. Like, this guy is delusional. Like, how is he like pretty much saying like, hey, if you voted, we're not going to count it. We're not going to count it because like you only have one day to vote. Like, come on, bro.
Well, you do have a good point on the it is delusion that Donald Trump would run and that he would win. So I'll give you that, but I just think that the Kanye, even Kim, go to Kim's Twitter.
Actually, I don't think Kim supported Kanye.
Yeah, go to Kim's Twitter and let's see who she voted for. Kim Kardashian West.
Is she just Kim Kardashian on?
Yeah, right there.
Oh,
Kim Kardashian
right?
West.
Oh, this is ballots, but. Is that her?
Yeah, that's her. Let's see who she voted for.
12 hours ago, I voted. Did you?
Keep going down.
There's no way she voted for Kanye.
I don't think
down.
she voted for Kanye. This is November 3rd. Like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I don't. She just says like.
I voted.
Yeah, just I voted. She didn't even say like I voted for Kanye.
I think she voted for Biden.
I think she voted for Biden.
What is this latest video? What is this? Okay, this is
this is 12 hours ago.
This is like a spoof video.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Can you imagine her little dilemma? It's like, vote for my husband or an actual candidate.
So, okay, let's say, you know, it's looking like, based on the latest results, that Biden does have a slight lead, but I mean, obviously this can flip, you know, pretty quickly here. What do you think? Let's say Trump does win.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say he does win. What do you think the next month is going to look like?
I really think it's going to be played out kind of the same thing that's been progressing around this. I would like to think he'd get a little bit more quiet around stuff because the campaign's done. But in reference to what we've seen happen to the economy, happen to the world, more or less, based on everyone watching the States, I think it's going to keep on going down that funnel, keep on going down that same pit. I was speaking to a few family members of mine about how I have a few cousins. I have a brother-in-law that's in the States and things like that. And he was kind of telling me that from the ground level, there's so much anxiety, there's so much fear, ultimately, because people are so politically charged, that I felt that if Biden wins, there was going to be a lot of violence. I felt like I feel like someone to be honest, a black person in America is going to lose their life in some capacity, in some shape or form, due to the outrage or distrust. But if Trump wins, I feel like this is going to just continue as is in respect to what's already been happening in terms of people still getting murdered or mistreated or abused or killed accordingly. So I don't know.
So do you think there's any good that's going to come out of Trump winning, getting reelected here? Do you see any good in it?
Absolutely not.
Okay. I will say the one thing that I think will be good when Trump wins, if he wins again and if he gets reelected here. I think we will have a realization that every single person on the planet lives in a bubble, that we live in our own echo chamber, that whatever we're reading is filtered to us, the people that we talk to, they are part of our bubble. And I think this is a beautiful realization that that people are different.
Yep.
People have different views and insights. Whatever we think is right may not be right. And I think I'm hoping that this sort of, shows people that, because, for most people that live, definitely in my bubble, in my sort of multicultural, very South Asian bubble, of course, everyone is, more so anti-Trump, right?
Yep.
I would say 80% like anti-Trump,
Yep.
right? And I live in that bubble.
Yep.
And I think, and I would assume the same thing for you
Yep.
as well. But the world is so much more than that. And that's the one thing that I hope that we can realize.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And where I question, because similar to your bubble, I have a lot of people who are also anti-Trump, but I feel like I have a lot of people who are actually pro-Trump, and they just don't either voice it or they just don't really speak or talk about it. And the reason why is, once again, there is a lot of controversy when it comes to Trump due to his politics and beliefs. And I feel like there's not enough dialogue. So I like how, to your point, this is going to be sort of like the positive factors. Like, people are going to understand that, hey, there's other people outside of my world that have those choices. But really, I would love to start seeing those bridges of discussions, those bridges of people who are coming from opposite sides of the fence to get an understanding and perspective. So one thing that I do to get perspective is, I'm sure you've noticed too, but how social media gives you more of what you want to see.
Exactly.
I purposely go to other sides of the camps or other beliefs, whether it's around Trump's supporters or people who speak about some of his politics, to get a better understanding perspective of different sides of points of view. And seeing some of those comments and seeing some of those discussions has been fascinating. It's been interesting to see why people have these certain beliefs and values. And I think that's what makes me a better decision maker, have better conversations, and see the world for what it is, which is clearly a magnitude of different bubbles and opinions and conversations and dialogues.
Well, I love that, and I think that's what everybody needs to do is get more outside perspectives.
Totally.
And accept everyone. Is it stupid that we're here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada? We're talking about U.S. elections. There's so many people that I know in my little bubble that they're stressed, they have anxiety over this thing, when there's not that much of a direct correlation. So what are we doing? We're sitting here, we're sitting in this theater talking about something that we're not even in the country. And there's so many people in our bubble that are getting impacted. Why are we concerned about this?
Good.
It's the superpower, man. It's USA.
What are we doing?
USA has such a
what are we doing here?
influence on everything in the world.
And you know what, Sean? This is such a remarkable phenomenon around marketing or storytelling that I think, because we don't even understand truly our own politics that affects us, whether it's around the Canadian government all the way down to our city politics, our city government. And so you're right. What are we doing discussing of nailing down? And to Mo's point, that's true. The U.S. affects a lot of, everyone looks to the U.S. A lot of leadership looks to the U.S. There's a lot of stuff, businesses, opportunities, innovation, communities that are in the States that then ladders up to different parts of the country. And let's be honest, here in Canada, we are cousins. That's our big brother in terms of where we get our television, our culture, our community.
Absolutely.
And as much as we sometimes say for the bad, that's America. We're in Canada, we're the good. We get so much influence.
Absolutely. Well, we get.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
like, for example, like a good indication is, I believe it's the Keystone Pipeline. So, like, if Biden wins, he might actually revert that action, which means that whatever they're trying to build for the oil.
Yeah,
there is definitely economic ties, social ties. There's so much influence, there. So the whole world wants to know what is going on in the U.S. and how crazy.
It does definitely move culture, but I think, and we are so into, and part of it is entertainment.
Totally.
I mean, part of this is sports, right?
100%.
And we don't want to admit it, but I don't know how many people's lives were impacted between Trump and Obama. I'll be honest with you, like, not much for me. So the fact that we may have another 4 years of Trump, I mean, this is not looking like it. It looks like it's looking like Biden may take this. To be honest with you, I don't know how much different my life is going to be.
Totally, and that's a great, like, almost like reflective question. Is like, how much does U.S. politics, or how much does, like, government affect sort of the work that we're doing? And I feel that that's such a important question to ask and to really think and reflect on, because obviously the work that we're doing, the people we surround ourselves with, shouldn't be too impacted by the U.S. election.
Well, okay, so let me ask you a question about BLM then.
Yeah.
Because the Black Lives Matter movement started in the States,
Yep.
and now it has become a global movement. And the tension between Black Americans and white Americans is, has been well documented. In Canada, we have similar issues for sure.
Yep.
Not as deep rooted as the States, and yet I don't know. I feel like we follow what's happening in the States. We want to have the same change here. You're the best person to speak to this about. So because I feel like we're not the same as the U.S. But
and that actually, that narrative is not accurate. And,
Okay.
and the reason why is, so the states and what's been happening there, out of density, out of the amount of documentation and bottom line amplification, like, that is just a lens of what's actually happening across the world.
right.
So one of the discussions that we're consistently having with some of the work that I'm doing, some of the volunteering work, is
Yeah.
about this notion that what's happening to the Black community here in Canada, here in Edmonton, here in Alberta, is nothing close to the States, and that couldn't be further from the truth. There are people who are losing their lives. There are people who are getting
Right.
murdered. There are people who are getting abused, where 3 years ago in Calgary, there was like a vicious that just finally came to fruition, a visual.
I think I saw what you're talking
Yeah.
about. I mean, even in Edmonton, I mean, there's been multiple
100%. And so what's happened is the Black Lives Matter movement that has happened in the States has been the catalyst.
Yes.
And it's been the catalyst
Right.
that has allowed discussions, conversations, hopefully change of policies and revisions around how Black people are treated. And then in the bigger extent, how our minorities, visible minorities, cultural communities, people of color are treated as a whole, which is not the same, which is not as equals.
Right.
And this is where what's been happening in the States can be used as almost a sense of, yes, data and information, a sense of perspective, and then end of the day, people believe what they see.
Right.
And so you don't sometimes get that same similar documentation
Well, that's the thing.
here in Canada.
Because everyone is in a bubble, right? I don't
Totally.
get the same documentation. And by the way, not everything is recorded. Because half the time it's snowing and no one has we could be, unearthing more. Well, thank you for mentioning that, because I always thought that the link between the angst that the Black people in Canada has is not as strong as in the States, because although we had slavery here in Canada, it is much more deeply rooted in the U.S.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the stats are for our Black brothers and sisters here in Canada, but what is the percentage of people that are from slavery versus people that have immigrated here from Africa? Because I don't think our African brothers and sisters would have the same, I don't know. They have the same. Somebody from South Africa may not have the same
kind of like
feelings as somebody who has literally their ancestors were slaves.
Yeah. So, and I off the top of my head, I believe it's sitting around like 30% of the Black Canadian population is people who like immigrated into the country, but they share that same bond. They share that same issue because ultimately, whether you could trace your lineage or roots down to slavery, all the way down to you came from one of the major motherlands, Jamaica, the Caribbean, Africa, ultimately you're treated the same. You're looked at and perceived today as, in certain degrees, what you looked like from slavery. So because there's that perception that at the end of the day I see this, you're a Black man, you're a Black woman, you're a Black child, and this is how I'm gonna treat you, we all share that same like mindset about addressing these issues, addressing these concerns. And there's this other moment that's actually folding where myself, I'm Canadian, born and raised here in Edmonton, where people have this like perspective, which is a little bit weird. It's kind of twisted where they kind of look at you because I'm Black. Oh, well, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, well, I'm from Alberta. Like, no, but where are you from? And it's like, well,
as a brown man, I get that too. Yeah,
totally, all the time. And like people, like it's weird. There's this weird perspective. Like, of course, a Canadian can never be Black, but obviously a Native Canadian can be Black. Like, like, and so because of that outlook, end of the day, there's a really like almost like an identity crisis where we're trying to really have those conversations to ladder up to just bottom line equality, being treated the same, or in certain situations, just be left alone to our own vices, to build our communities, to build our structures, to have our conversations, and just live.
Tell me this, because somebody who is asking you questions about this, it's funny because we the guys, Moh, Mazen, we were recently at a conference where I asked a question around Black Lives Matter, right? BLM, and it and they were white. I asked the question, to a couple white people, and it's like they were searching for the words, right?
Yeah.
It was like they were looking for the perfect words to say, and
so sensitive.
Yeah.
And listen, like, because you can put yourself in a situation where maybe you have said something wrong or you perceive something wrong, but I think we're all in the sense of learning. But like literally, we had to cut something out because they didn't feel what they said was
appropriate or safe for.
But it was completely fine, right? But I think, how do we move from the how do we move to a point where people can ask questions, have an open conversation about it, get their thoughts out without getting slammed, and
I guess you gotta be like Donald Trump, just say how it is.
Right? Well, Donald Trump has not said, he doesn't believe in Black Lives Matter.
Totally.
And by the way, he can say anything.
Which
and
is, in a way, I actually respect that about him, because you're just like, okay, I know your point of view. So you're not dancing around.
It's like Black lives do not matter, which is nuts.
Totally. Yeah. And you know what? It's that's a good question. It's all going to come down to having open conversations, because you're right. There's, I'm of the opinion, this notion when referring to Black people, calling them people of color, I'm actually against that. And the reason why is I feel that what's happening in culture, for example, is people are using that because to call this person Black, it has that connotation of negative, it's bad. So I can't even make a reference, like how do I reference them or this group or this culture, this community? And it comes down to this language and the usage of it. And having some clear transparency around that to say like, hey, actually, you can refer to me as Black. That's not negative. That's not bad. That's not evil. It's okay. And so it comes down to dialogue and having safe spaces, because, with a popular term.
But what is a safe space? Because there is no safe space anymore.
It comes down to who you're dialoguing with. So with that whole notion of cancel culture, where people, I've seen it happen, and I've seen it happen in the city, where someone who's been an advocate, who's been working hard, who's been helping the black community, says the wrong thing in the wrong time, and the world just channels up against him or her, and just really jumps on that wagon. Like, I'm so anti that, especially the people who've been putting in the work to help certain communities or certain groups. But it has to be created in a certain manner. You have to have that discussion and dialogue. You have to almost have like that premise to make sure people understand that, hey, this is two groups who have different opinions.
Exactly.
And they're now going to have a discussion. And this discussion is going to have its polarization aspects to it, but that's just part of it. That's part of the communication. That's how we're going to grow past those moments of time. And if we don't set that context and set that stage, then you're always going to have these either just polite, non-combative discussions and get nowhere, and just have people just then go back to their camps to have those discussions or have those opinions.
Yeah, and we had this conversation earlier about the black squares. You didn't post a black square.
I did not post
As a black guy, he did not post his black square. Mo, did you post a black square?
I believe I did.
He did post a black
I
square.
believe I did. It's
listen.
not there anymore.
You deleted your black square.
No, but not right away.
He deleted the black square.
No. Well, number one, I haven't been posting much lately, so
Don't use that as an excuse.
Listen,
no, I'm not using that as an
it's
excuse.
fine. Listen, most of the people I know post the black square.
One second. Not to defend myself. I did the research before I posted it, and the black square, in a way, was used to silence the movement. So I did not like hashtag BLM and all that stuff. It was more just as a solidarity. Like,
it was a solidarity piece.
So without actually taking away from the movement, because the hashtags for social media are used to like mobilize people on the ground floor, right? So people want the real action of what's going on. That's why you use the hashtags. But the Blackout Tuesday, I think was what they called it, or Blackout, whatever the hell it was. Yeah. It was in a way, it started like you go on social media and all of a sudden you see everything's black and you're like, well, where's the information? All right.
Exactly.
So I think there was the misinformation that was in what context people were trying to show that. And, you can show your solidarity in many different ways, through conversation, through donation, so like
showing up.
Yeah, it's just showing up. Exactly. So that wasn't just the only thing I did, right? Like,
no, I know. Listen, and the only reason I'm bringing it up is because I didn't post a black square because I didn't know what the hell to do. Like, is that my contribution to Black Lives Matter? That I posted a fucking black square on Instagram? Like, I just didn't, like, having conversations like this to me are more important because, that to me is like my, at least what I can do to educate myself because as a brown man living in Canada, born and raised here, I mean, we have our own sort of, I grew up with my black brothers and sisters, in my household, we grew up with them, but God forbid that we would marry one. I mean, my mom would never let me marry a black girl, right? And so those are the own things our brown people have. And by the way, us brown people, we have been jacking your culture for years.
Yeah.
I mean, the style, the slang, the music.
Yeah.
So on behalf of all brown people, I thank you. Like, we have been exploited. But that's why, I mean.
I was just going to add something too. It's funny because there's some black people who, like, if you didn't show support by perhaps posting that black square, in a way just showed that, like, you're not contributing to the cause. It's funny because you have mixed types of black people who are in the community who would, like, in a way say something, and then like so there's already like certain divides of opinions in that, and then sometimes I feel like social media is not the right place to like to be like judge people's like thoughts and opinions. Like
100, I think you nailed it there, Bo. Just because like that whole black squares things, and I mean that's a prelude to the culture we live in now, where people online through social media are always trying to figure out something. So depending on the event, depending on the causes, people are changing profile pictures or posting a certain image of the way that they're going to participate in getting that information out. And that's well and fun, but like end of the day, no, social media is a poor place to really utilize of how people's values or where they stand on items and things. Because I'm also of the opinion that now what's happening in today's landscape, where there's a lot of people who are speaking about the Black Lives Matter movement, there's a lot of people who are not Black who are speaking on that movement in terms of posting content and sharing stories. There's now like a growing group of Black people who are upset with those people. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like there are people right now who are Black, who are really supportive of the Black Lives Matter movement, who are getting upset that there's white people, brown people, Asian people who are posting and sharing all these stories about what's going on. And I'm like, you are the problem. And I've said that blame to people, like, you are the problem. Like, why would you, like, to get upset, to get choked, to have a perspective that this person shouldn't be sharing these stories, shouldn't be promoting this stuff, I think is a really terrible thing.
Well, listen, you've been doing, you haven't been talking, you've been putting in the work in the community, not only in this city, but across Canada. So, we appreciate it. And, these conversations are, I love chopping it up with you because I think you are brilliant and you have a nuanced view of things, right? Because you have these open perspectives, you can come at it from different directions. So I really appreciate your perspective on this. Any things that you want to say about this election? We started this talking about this election. Anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to say? Just the closing remarks around your opinion around Trump and Biden. I'm going to go to you, and then I'm going to go to Mo.
Yeah. So I guess my only opinion, yes, this is strictly for people outside of America. Like, yes, the next president is going to impact and affect many lives, but I would really like to see people try to create this buffer zone, try to create circumstances that they can have more control over their lives and the people pouring around them. Because when you depend on the government, when you get caught up into this circular system of every 4 years, you have this anxiety, you have these challenges and issues structured around who's going to be that candidate. You feel almost like a lack of control and that disconnect. So I would implore people to really start to self-reflect on how they can make choices and decisions around getting control over their lives in whatever manner and whatever effects, before always looking towards being solely dependent on who's at leadership.
I love that.
At the helm.
Control your own destiny. Mo.
I'm just checking Twitter over here, and this one's getting some retweets. 50% of Americans voted for Trump to be reelected. Coronavirus likes this.
Well, there you go. But
it's either that feeling or me as a Canadian checking the news every 2 minutes for the election. My man Ed Norton over here, that's like pretty much us.
There you go.
I don't have any final thoughts. Just shout out to Mazen in the background.
Yeah. Shout out to Mazen.
For cutting all the angles.
Absolutely. I would say this is that, I don't know what's going to happen, but I love having conversations like this. Thank you so much. I don't know where this is going, but you're going to see it. And thank you so much.
Okay, dope. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Awesome, man. That was fun, man.
That was cool.
Holy, we can go forever. And I was like, looking at the time. That's funny.